as daughters of immigrants, right, and being able to vote, we have this like specific privilege. And I know, Lady, I think you mentioned we look a certain way, so are we really safe, right? And so I think about that all the time, especially when interacting with ICE officers and different law enforcement. But there is that specific privilege that we hold, and I think doing what we can to use it.
You hold the people close to you accountable as well, making sure they're voting. Like, did you register to vote? There's an election tomorrow. You could early vote. No, I don't want to hear excuses. No, okay. And those midterms, the general, all the elections, not just the big primary one, all the elections, making sure if you have that privilege to vote and you're able to go vote, please.
Hello and welcome to Together We Vote, a limited series podcast that is part of NPNA's Together We Are America campaign. This campaign is a nonpartisan national effort which encourages voters who have immigrant parents, voters who are naturalized, and allies to immigrant communities to register and vote in this year's midterm elections. I'm Nancy Flores, and I'll be hosting today's conversation, and I'll be joined by two amazing Latinas who, like me, are the proud daughters of immigrants. And we're going to unpack what it means to carry that medal of honor as voters, as Latina voters, as young voters, and as Americans of color in 2026. I'm so excited to dig into today's topic, honoring the original dreamers, voting for our parents. For this episode, I want to thank Crecen in Houston, Texas, Alianza Americas, and Voces de la Frontera for partnering with us and making today's episode a reality. As I mentioned, this topic is very personal to me because my parents are immigrants from Mexico. I grew up in two worlds, like millions of people actually in this country. One English-speaking and the other Spanish-speaking world. And as the oldest daughter, I was sort of the bridge between these two worlds. And as my family's translator, navigating not just how things in this country work, but also this looming question of what it means to belong. And I think that this is something unique to our American experience as children of immigrants. As a young child, I grew up in a town of 7,000 people in southeastern Wisconsin for most of my life. And there were a lot of times when I didn't feel seen, heard, or represented. And now, as an adult, as a mom of two young boys, I wish I could go back to tell little Nancy that Latinas are powerful and that our potential has no limit. And it's this unrealized potential that we really want to nuance and dig into today. So as it relates to Latino voters, according to our partners at Unidos US, a record number of Latinos, 36.2 million, were eligible to vote in 2024, of which a record 16.6 million voted in that same year. And this number is up from 12.7 million in 2016. So we can see huge growth in a short amount of time. According to Voto Latino, for the first time in history, Latino voters became the second largest voting bloc in the United States. When we voted in 2020, we recognized that Latino voters are not a monolith, and not all Latinos are voting the same way or share the same voting patterns, or even share our experiences as US citizens with immigrant parents. But it's important to understand where we stand as it relates to members of this voting bloc. In another episode, you'll hear all about the power of naturalized voters, so stay tuned for that. But we also wanted to share what the numbers say about mixed status families. According to the Center of Migration Studies, CMS, 5.8 million US households are home to at least one undocumented resident. Of those, 4.7 million households are home to undocumented residents and US citizens or others with legal status. So looking at the context of the moment that we're in today, mass deportation threatens to break up nearly 5 million American families. On the one hand, we have the power to make a sizable impact on elections. And on the other hand, the gravity of what our communities are confronted with is also significant. With that context, I'd like to welcome our guests. Deisy España from Milwaukee, Wisconsin is here joining us today. And we are also joined by Leydi Gonzalez from Houston, Texas. I want to start with you, Deisy. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey as a daughter of immigrants.
My name is Deisy España. I am 24 and I am based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm also organizer with Voces de la Frontera, which is Wisconsin's leading immigrant and worker rights organization. But most importantly, I would say I'm the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants. My parents are from Jalisco, Mexico, and they came to the United States over like 25 years ago. My mom is a permanent resident. She became a resident about 3.5 years ago, after having to wait about 23 years, right? And my dad, he is still undocumented with no pathway as of now, right? So a lot of my work is because of my upbringing and just being raised by immigrants and seeing what their like struggles were growing up. I grew up on the south side of Milwaukee, so if you ever go to Milwaukee or visit Milwaukee, you'll understand that the south side, it's like almost everyone there like speaks your language and looks like you, and they're from the same place as you are. So it always felt like a nice community. But once you get older, you realize all the issues and challenges that everyone faces. So that's the reason why I started doing what I do now, which is, organizing. But I'm also a Gemini and a middle child, so I can be problematic in a good way, of course. But yeah, really excited to be part of this.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And we have to ask, I'm going to ask this to both of you. What is the most Milwaukee thing about you that you, if you had to give us the tea?
I think the most Wisconsin thing about me is that I wear shorts when it's like 40 degrees because it can get cold here, and 40 degrees, it's like summer, Same thing in the winter. Like I wear a hoodie when it's like negatives because it can get colder than that, But
yeah. That's a pretty Milwaukee thing. Awesome. Well, welcome, Deisy. We're so happy to have you. Next, I'll turn it over to Leydi. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be part of this very important conversation. My name is Leydi Gonzalez. I am 22 years old. I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas, which is a great city when we talk about diversity. I think Deisy talked about a little bit, you get to see and a lot of people who look like you, sound like you. So I really do enjoy being here from Texas in Houston. But both of my parents are Salvadorian. Super proud of that as well. And they both have TPS right now as Salvadorians. And as we know, right now we're a little bit of limbo, but we're hoping and crossing our fingers and praying for the best for them. But they're also in the middle of their transition to petition for their U.S. residency that we had to wait, of course, once I turned 21, but plus 1 year because of work and a lot of stuff, which I was super excited from a very young age. I knew my role as well as an eldest daughter that, once I turned 21, I wasn't, drinking was there, but also my big goal was to help my parents kind of get in their permanent U.S. residency. So I'm super excited to be part of this conversation. As of my full-time job, I work for a nonprofit organization called Ibn Sina Foundation here in Houston, and they're community clinics around the Houston area that help people get the services they need. And we work with a lot of families who are also low income, non-insured, a lot of big here in the southwest side of Houston, the immigrant community. So we work a lot with them. And I'm just super excited to be here.
Welcome, Leydi. And you got to tell us, what's the most Houston thing about you?
The most Houston thing about me is probably I love a brisk tea anywhere. I don't know if brisk tea and the Texacos are super great. I love just a good iced tea here. I also like jewelry. I like grills. Very Houston of me, but I do love the jewelry and the bling. So I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Definitely feeling the vibes from your respective cities here today. So great to get this grounding and get to know a little bit more about you all. And Lady, actually, I want to stick with you for this next question. And we're gonna get serious. We're gonna get into it. Shift gears a little bit here, but the past year and a half has been so difficult, and it's hard to even think that it's just been a little over a year and a half. But our communities have been through a lot, and we've seen some moments that leave an even more profound mark that really kind of memorialize this collective grief that we're going through. And one of those moments happened over the summer, and that was when Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a Houstonian, a father, a husband, and a small business owner, was tragically killed by ICE in Houston on July 7th. And for a lot of us who are the children of immigrants, I think that this killing was particularly gut-wrenching for a lot of reasons. But going back to this topic, the words that echoed in every conversation that I had with my friends in the days after this loss were, that could have been my dad, and just this like feeling. I remember like not being able to sleep and thinking about his kids and thinking about his wife, and just seeing his brave sons who are like us, right? US citizens, speaking out against the injustice that happened to their dad and not letting him just be another headline. This really struck a chord with me, and I think so many of us, because we saw ourselves really directly in that story. So Lady, can you describe to us what this day was like for you, being there in Texas, being there in Houston, and what you're seeing happening in your city as a result of this?
Yeah, it was definitely something that hit a lot of, like you said, it hit a lot of my family, hit a lot of just my friends. A lot of my friends are Hispanic too, so it was like, wow. Yeah, my condolences a lot to the Lorenzo Salgado family, and especially the sons that are, choosing and knowing and not backing out to speak their voices, because they are going to be heard one way or another. And the organizations here in Houston as well, like Crece and like FIA, who are standing beside them, because I feel like it does take a village to make sure this doesn't get swept under the rug. Because, like you said, it could have been anybody's uncle, anybody's brother, anybody's dad. Like, he was just trying to go to work, which is the reality for a lot of our families here, in all the United States, right? It's like we're just trying to go to work, we're trying to study, you know. The quote unquote American dream is to come here and choose a better life for your family, right? So that's the original dream. So when we're actually doing it, where we're going to work, we're going to school, and for us, for not to be a safe place to be driving, and stuff like this happens when, again, you're just trying to go to work and live a better life. It's haunting, it's scary, and it put a lot of fear and tension here in Houston. And like you said, it's not the first time that's been going on. Even like months before that, the I don't know how to say it in English, the redadas that were going on, right? The Just a lot of increased ICE activity that was going on here in Houston, affected a lot of people and a lot of families, like us, right, who were like kind of mixed status, because in one hand, you're scared for your parents, but you're a U.S. citizen, but you look a certain way, so it's like a lot of that. But yeah, here in Houston, there's been a lot of protests, a lot of organization that's happening, and a lot of like just demand for justice. And it's been inspiring to see people, especially the Hispanic community, kind of stand up to this, because we, we can't back down, especially the sons a lot of the Salgado family. So yeah, it was definitely tragic. Like you said, it struck a lot of chords, but it's important to stand your ground and demand the justice that is needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I echo a lot of your sentiment there. And I think that one of the like collateral damages of what's happening with ICE and with the targeting of our communities, one of the collateral damages is that we're in a new era of racial profiling, right? Like, this has never fully gone away in this country, like, let's be honest about it. But I think that now there is a particular target, and the targets look like us, right? And papers are not distinguishable here, right? And when these stops are happening, or the identifiers of why they pull people over. So that's something that I really hope will mobilize our folks to the polls, and that's something that I hope people will be inspired. Deisy, I want to same question. Just there have been a lot of these big moments over the past couple of years. You've been on the front lines with a lot of these families locally, but how do you remember that day, and how are you dealing with all of that's happening?
And so we had called for an emergency meeting, and we started the planning of like an emergency rally, and it's kind of become, unfortunately, kind of like a not habit, more so like a norm, right? Where something tragic happens and you take the streets right away. Not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that's definitely needed, but it's unfortunate that we have to do those things. Yeah, so I share the sentiment of how devastating it was that day and that week, and even now, right? We're still talking about it. There are still protests, but I also think about what you said, Nancy, about how people in your circle were saying that could have been my dad, that could have been our dad, right? And I think I forget what Lorenzo worked as, but my dad, for example, he drives like a pickup truck, right? And he has all his work stuff, not a van, but like a pickup, and he has all his stuff there. And I had to ask for his location, and so now I look at his location all the time, because like you never know. And so he carries like a red card with him, and I'm like trying to train him on what to do if he's ever in a position where ICE is like doing like a traffic stop or whatnot. But it's there's definitely a lot of feelings. And not long ago, I think it was a few weeks ago, where where someone was killed by the Madison Madison police officer, and recognizing that there are different struggles, but we're all like connected, and each struggle is like our fight. And in order to win something like bigger, we must all like come together. And so we've been in coalition with the family who was affected by that killing, and so there's just a lot of different things going on, and yeah, it's been difficult for sure.
Yeah, I think difficult is like an understatement, and like a way to put it very mildly and very like diplomatically, maybe is the word. Yeah, I think that point around like things being interconnected and many different communities being impacted, like that is like longer term vision. Like a lot of times, like we can only see here to here, the short term, but there is a bigger vision that those that are attacking our communities have, and that's not from here to here. That is a long range vision. So I hope that we can, in our conversations with voters, also be able to connect those dots, right? And that's such an important point. So I think that that's actually like a really good way to describe it. I feel like there's been these moments, like when the stuff was happening in Minnesota, the occupation, it was just like number one, I have family there who I love and I care about, and that was just jarring. But also seeing that the limit as we knew it has been blown out of the water. Like that is no longer there. And that's just something that, like, in my lifetime, I never felt that in like, indirect to our communities. I think, unfortunately, we've seen these horrible injustices at the hands of the state, George Floyd, so many other, I'm originally from Los Angeles. I remember the Rodney King situation as a very, very little kid, that was just before we moved to Wisconsin. But, so it's like all of these things that just have this like shock to your nervous system. Like, I feel like we're going through like a collective trauma, a collective grief. And like, I don't like it here anymore. We needed like something different, and we need to, just not be here anymore. And that's something that, I'm definitely thinking about and leaning into hope as a discipline, not a would be nice, but like as a discipline, like hope is going to get us to where we need to get. So I want to move us into the next piece of our conversation here. And Daisy, I'll start with you. I want to talk to we want to shift gears here toward how do we channel our anger, our frustration that so many of us are feeling. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing, organizing the community, providing the critical services that you all are providing, and what inspired you to run for office a couple of years ago? We'd love to hear that, because we need more of that. We need more representation.
I tell my friends that there's no time to, like, I don't have time to like grieve anything that's going on, or like feel, it's like work. And I say that because I think yes, it's important to give ourselves time to like process what's going on, but I also think that because there's so much of it, and you kind of learn how to be stronger, like mentally and emotionally. I remember last year a father was detained by ICE, and it made like national news because of the situation that they were basing their detainment on. Long story short, it was like wrongful, like a wrongful arrest. They got the wrong person, etc. But the day that it happened, his daughter, who was like around my age, came, and she was like handling her family's like situation. And when she cried, I would cry, and it was just not like, I had to learn how to be like okay in order for me to help other people. And so now I wouldn't say it's easier. I think I've managed to not suppress how I feel, but more so learn to work with it, right? And so we have everything from like food pantries, right? People are scared to go to work or leave their homes. So in a way, it is kind of like COVID, right? Where people had to stay inside. The only difference is that when COVID was happening, for example, like my parents, who, again, are immigrants, they didn't have like that privilege of staying home, and they still had to work despite everything that was going on. And now they're kind of like, people like my parents are almost like have no other option but to stay home, right? Because they're scared. And so, like I said, we do like food. We have a food pantry, so we deliver food, or people can come to the office to get to pick up like a bag or two. And then we also do like court accompaniment, right? There's been an increase in requests just because we've seen an increase of contracts with ICE here in the state of Wisconsin. And so you got people who get stopped for driving without a license. They have to go to court, and now they're scared to go to court, but they have to, otherwise they would get like a arrest warrant. And so it just, there's like no option. And then of course going to their ICE check-ins or immigration court. So we help with that. And then there's that like rapid response effort of, we have a emergency hotline number that's 24/7. If they think people see ICE, they can call. That way we can let people know, like kind of give like a warning. But also if there was a detention, like a family member was detained, they can call that number, and we can do like a referral to attorneys and kind of get going on that case, just because the sooner we can do that, like I think it's easier in the long run, right? And to your point, Nancy, there was like a increase of ICE activity it was about I want to say like a week, and it was the most we've seen really in a long time. And it was like left and right, everybody posting on Facebook, someone's getting taken here, there, so we were pretty busy. But I think I'm really proud of just our response as an organization, but also as a coalition, because a lot of people came forward. We were knocking on doors, giving people know your rights cards. I mean, it was definitely an experience, and I think we're in a spot where we're a bit privileged, right? Because we don't see what, like, for example, Houston is seeing, or LA or Chicago, right? Our neighbors, Minnesota. And so I think we've been trying to prepare for that, especially with this new ICE facility that was built on our northwest side of the city. My advice to people who are angry is just get involved, right? Even if it's just attending a training, or a meeting, or even just a simple act of voting, right? If you're eligible to vote, just go and vote for what your values are. That's how I started, right? I was in high school when I started getting involved, and I couldn't vote until the 2020 election, and I was super excited to vote. But I did things before that, right? I went to trainings, I knocked on doors, I showed up to like protests. I just became civically engaged, and it got me to where I am now, like professionally, but also I think in like understanding everything that's going on and being a better like asset to my community. Um, which then led me to run for office about 2 years ago. I think if you're passionate and you bring good ideas, or you believe that you can make a difference, then I think you should run. Even if you don't win, right? Like, you get to build relationships with people all over your district, or depending on what you run for. But I was able to build long lasting relationships that I have to this day, and just, get your name out there, and people are going to know who you are, and you're going to be able to help a lot more people, because not everybody is civically engaged. And as daughters of immigrants, right, and being able to vote, we have this like specific privilege. And I know, Lady, I think you mentioned that, we look a certain way, so are we really safe, right? And so I think about that all the time, especially when interacting with like ICE officers and different law enforcement. But there is that specific privilege that we hold, and I think doing what we can to use it wisely. I have a friend who, she's a DACA recipient, and her mom self-deported last year because she just couldn't do it anymore. And so, I mean, we're seeing things like firsthand, and there's no shame in that, right? We never shamed her for leaving. I did give like kudos to my friend who's a DACA recipient, who had essentially the same opportunity to leave with her mom, and chose to stay because she believes in this fight. Not that her mom didn't, but she still has some fight left in her. And so, I mean, she's doing it for herself. She's doing it for her parents, and that's kind of where we should all take motivation from, right? Is the people around us and the people who are like firsthand feeling everything that is going on. So
there was a lot there, but there's a lot happening, and I think that you are on the front lines. You're doing a lot for community there at Voces, and honestly, it's a lifeline. And I think for a lot of people, like, I remember, Voces is my home organization, and I remember, people literally saying, like, I didn't know what to do. You, like, helped me along the way, and now my family member is out. It's huge. It's huge what NPNA member organizations are doing for our communities. Leydi, how are you navigating this moment, and how are you looking at the election coming up?
Yeah, it was Deisy. It was important conversations because I feel like you have a perspective that not a lot of us have. Like, for example, like I'm enough civically engaged that I'm informed of what's going on, but you have a whole perspective of like running for office and connecting with these officials and kind of partially knowing the rules and how to navigate this law system or just the system of the US that not a lot of people know. And especially if there's a barrier like language barrier, culture barrier that a lot of us, our families have, is and can be quite difficult not knowing what to do. So education is always super important. So educating my parents of like, hey, this is what's happening right now. This is real what's going on, what to do just in case. Like you said, those attentions happen, educating myself, even like we mentioned, even though I was born here, I'm a US citizen, but in the back of my head, I was like, I should know how to interact just in case something happens because I do look Hispanic in a sense. So, I do look a certain way. So it's like, preparing ourselves and our friends and everyone around us. Um, but a big part for me as well is, you know, there's so much going on, but it's also important for me to celebrate being Hispanic and being Latino and being first generation, being from these beautiful countries and culture. So what I have been doing here in Houston recently, of course, encouraging all my friends to vote and be like, hey, like Daisy mentioned, voting for what your values, your morals, what, would benefit your family. Think about your family, think about your roots, what will help them feel like this is a safe place for them, but also hosting events. Like last year, me and my friend Luz, we also put on a Hispanic heritage celebration here in Houston, and we invited Fiel out, and they did a Know Your Rights program in our celebration, and we celebrated Latino artists and like music, art, photography, and combining my love for like art and the music with my proud like Latino heritage. So combining those things and making people hear what we're doing and see what we're doing is also super important for me, especially in a city like Houston where a lot of things are going on, a lot of spaces, whether it be music or what's going on, because there is so many of us. It's important for me to make sure that you get your voice out one way or another. So if it be community organizations and events that we could include Fiel in or other partners, Know Your Rights and education, I think that's a very proactive way to do it, and making sure that you hold the people close to you accountable as well, making sure they're voting. Like, did you register to vote? There's an election tomorrow. You could early vote. And no, I don't want to hear excuses. No, okay. And those midterms, the general, all the elections, not just the big primary one, all the elections, making sure if you have that privilege to vote and you're able to go vote, please.
I feel like what I'm taking from you all is like, this moment is not taking our joy. This moment is not taking our fighting spirit, right? And we're only going to go more deep into who we are, and that's not changing. So I love that. I feel that you all are just really wonderful and such assets in your community, and it's been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you all. And where we go from here. So it's a long road yet to November. A lot can happen. A lot will happen, I'm sure. But it's great to see that the children of immigrants that are now voters will be representing our parents. They're not alone. If you're listening to this transmission, if you're watching, and you also have been going through the motions like we have because of what's happening to our communities, because you feel that your parents are not safe, you're not alone. A lot of us are sharing those feelings, but a lot of us are also working toward the change that we need to see. And this is an invitation, right? That I'm echoing the invitation that you all are giving to our folks. Let's get involved. This is the time, and it's such a critical election. So thank you all for joining today's segment, honoring the original dreamers, voting for our parents. I'm going to, of course, ask you all, if you're watching this on YouTube or on social media, be sure to subscribe at NP New Americans. You can follow us on YouTube and all social platforms under that handle at NP New Americans. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Adios.